The Wookiees have sounded, the oven is done, and our community call is ready to go. This is David Warner. We are live with the community for the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development bi-weekly call. Today is November 9th. We're kicking into winter, and we are so excited because the warmth of the community is here to keep us all excited. What's the agenda for today? Well, we're going to talk about some updates on the community. We're going to see things from PnP.NET libraries and PowerShell, Yo Teams, Microsoft Teams Toolkit, Microsoft Graph Toolkit, all the toolkits, Publisher connectors. We're going to talk about script samples, team samples, Power Platform samples, lots of samples. And then, of course, everyone's favorite time, picture time. So get that hairdo ready and those fantastic faces ready to go. Then we're going to see 3 amazing presentations by our all-stars of the day. Jason's going to cover treating flows as functions, a Power Automate advanced technique. Paolo is going to get into implementing SSO-enabled Microsoft Teams message extensions with Teams Toolkit. And then, of course, Chris Kent is going to be back talking about list formatting. Yes, we know everybody's excited and ready to weigh in. See what I did there? Okay, let's talk about some resources that are available to you. We've got plenty of them. There are community videos by you in the community and us at Microsoft. So definitely check those out. We've got a LinkedIn group for discussions that you can be part of and interact with. Open source tooling like PnP.js and CLI for Microsoft 365. And of course, all of our samples. And you only need to remember every single one of these URLs by heart. There will be a quiz at the end. No, I'm kidding. You just need to go to aka.ms/community/home to get access to all these resources that are available to you 100% free. So definitely take advantage of it. Now, you're here on a community call because you like them. And we're glad you like them because we got plenty more for you. Our weekly series is with Microsoft speakers only. And occasionally we bring in some outside presenters. We're doing that right now with our AI Hack Together winners. So you'll see those over the next few weeks and the last few weeks. Those occur on Tuesday. And then we've got our monthly Power Platform call, which is happening next Wednesday. I'll be back from vacation for one day just to share that all with you. And we've got some awesome presentations on Copilot, Office add-ins, and then we've got our 2 sibling calls, one of which you're on right now, Microsoft 365 and Power Platform, and Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework. You can get access to these by going to aka.ms/community/calls. Definitely download the invites. Get them on your calendar. These calls are like crystal balls into the what's now, what's new, what's next. Take advantage of it and see how the rest of the world is using this technology. What was the agenda you're asking for that next Tuesday call? I just happen to have it ready for you. Nancy's going to cover Introduction to New Viva Connection version 3.0. Dan's going to be back in his ongoing series on signing in a user and getting an access token for organizational data using Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And Daniel and friends are going to be here showing off the best AI-powered solution, which is the categorical hack winner for AI. 14th of November, next Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. You can go to ak.ms/community/ms-speakers-call-invite. Just rolls off the tongue and get your invite. Definitely join us. Now, you may be thinking, these are some really cool presentations, and I feel like I got some cool stuff to show. We guarantee you do. So we want to invite you to request to demo on these calls. Don't overthink it, everybody. It doesn't have to be a flux capacitor, which is what makes time travel possible. Absolutely could be a favorite feature, a new technique. By the way, we got brand new people in the community all the time that need to know foundational level 100 information. If you've just learned something new, thinking, oh, everybody knows this, I guarantee everybody does not. You want to share it, let us know, fill out the form. And if you've never presented before, we'll even buddy you up with someone. So don't hesitate to get involved. We want to help you. We'll even work with you and present with you. And as you see all these samples and the community calls and all these opportunities to contribute, you may be thinking, hey, how can I get involved a little bit more, but get some help? Well, our Sharing is Caring initiative is here to provide that help for you. These are hands-on sessions that are safe space, meaning they do not get recorded, except for when we officially record them so that we can share them with you. But when they're live and we're all together, they're safe space opportunities for you to ask any and all questions. We've got those videos coming soon. And of course, we're setting up the office hours with winter setting in. We know we're going to spend a lot more time together indoors and contributing to the community. So we want to empower you. So keep on the lookout for that. I'm getting dates set up now that I've got a little time on vacation to spend on more time on this, and we will be setting those dates up. And of course, everybody loves a little badge. When you get involved and you contribute, we want to formally and officially recognize you with our recognition program. That is the program that is powered by Credly with official and accredited badges that you can associate to your LinkedIn profile, put on your resume. You can put them on your blog, let the world know you're making a difference. We've got fun and thematic badges that just kicked off in November, our Slice of Samples, and Season of Getting. We just ended Hacktoberfest, had a ton. Now is a new opportunity for some more badges. Get involved. All you got to do is opt in and contribute, aka.ms/community/recognition. Absolutely free, no cost at all. All right, let's get into some project-specific updates, and we're going to start off with PNP.NET Libraries and Bert.
Thank you, David. For .NET, we had like a pretty quiet last 2 weeks. In PNP Framework, there was a change done by Jose. He did some documentation fixes, so thanks for that, Jose. And then in Chorus Decay, we had a couple of incoming issues that we still have to deal with, but no changes. So, meaning that's good. Means it's getting stable and pretty mature. And I think from the PowerShell side, we can move to that one, David. We're more or less at the same. So not that much happened in PowerShell land over the last weeks. And the Gautam is out of office today, so he can't provide you any more details. But I think for the next period, much will happen again. Oh yes, one thing I need to talk about in our recall. There were some build issues with the framework and PowerShell with a mismatched season version. That has been resolved, so that should start to work again for you. And with that, let's move to the next one. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thanks, Bert. I think you just gave me an idea for my next vacation, PowerShell land. It sounds fantastic. All right, let's talk about Yo Teams with Tommy.
Yeah, hello everyone. As the seasoned listener may notice, whenever I'm here, there's nothing new to tell because the cool things are always done by Stefan or Rick. That's the case this week as well. Like in .NET, it was pretty quiet over the last couple of weeks in our area. Still looking for feedback for the latest preview, but we haven't fixed anything in the current week or in the current time frame. And yeah, we think about what will the future bring and how we will deal with this project in the ongoing time. That's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Tommy. You know, I was thinking it was cool because you're here. I actually think
Thank
everybody
you very
agrees.
much.
So you should be back more. We love you. All right, let's talk about Teams Toolkit with John. Dr. John, paging Dr. John.
Okay, now you can hear me?
There we go. Yeah, we got you.
Funny enough, the icon like grayed out, so I couldn't unmute myself. Anyway, Teams Toolkit. So still working on the same pre-release stuff. We're getting very close to releasing it, as you might expect, with all the events happening next week. So check those out if you want to get one last chance to try the pre-release things, so you can create all the new message extension types and in VS Code and in VS. So if you download the 17.9 preview 1, if that's available, I forget right now, but it will be in PP1. You can create the new message extension types in there and for plugins and for APIs, message extensions. And we're still working on the CLI and improving that. So if you want to chat with me or have any feedback, there's the link. You can schedule some time directly with me. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Let's move on over to Microsoft Graph Toolkit, one of the coolest and easiest ways to consume the Microsoft Graph, with Sebastian.
Thanks, David. So everybody, our latest release is 3.1.3, where we did a bunch of updates around basically like a lot of our components, enhancing them, doing a little bit of accessibility work all around, some new kind of low-end features there. The things we're really thinking about right now is to get ready for our V4. So after we did our V3, we have some really big fundamental changes coming to the toolkit. Especially if you're using on a toolkit in large applications, you want to make sure that you get the smallest package you can from us. So we're really working on performance and on size and on packages. So that is probably going to come in the next few weeks. If you're also looking for getting new components, you might actually get delighted by a new component that might or might not, but might render some chats the same way it does in Microsoft Teams. So that is something that we're currently closing on right now. So that is going to come as part of that V4. So I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to come to our repo, ak.ms/mgt. And I hope the next time I have some good news around maybe the availability, or at least the availability of a beta for V4. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Eb. I feel like you did this big wink at the camera when you said it might be available. Wink, wink. So we can't wait. Awesome. Let's move on to script samples with Paul Bullock.
Hey, everybody. So script samples is a place where you can share PowerShell scripts with the community. And we've had a bunch of new samples released in the last couple of weeks, which is super, super cool. So we've got some new scenarios with the Graph SDK, so sending a delay message by Martin and Majek. We've got some new PMP PowerShell scripts. So we've got ensuring M365 group owners and our group members by Recipe Aklu. Disable web templates gallery from Fresh Run Dialogues by Casper Larsen. We've got export hierarchy of subsites by Tetsuya Kawai. We've got export HTML content from SharePoint Online Modern pages by Giacomo Pozzoli. And we've got disable quick property editing grid view from a list by Ganesh Schnapp. And then we've got an update scenario. So this is a scenario where someone's added an additional script for the CLI for M365. So we've got a simple way how to automate your flow test by Joshua, which is super, super cool. Just to remind you that if you're setting up a sample or want to get going quickly, we've got a PowerShell script at the repo called new sample. And that will help you build out your script scaffolding and all the bits and pieces you need to publicize your script for the PR. But if you get any troubles with that, or you want to get any help with contributing, by all means, you can reach out to me on GitHub or Twitter or LinkedIn. I don't mind the medium, and I can get you help get you started. But also, if you are first-time contributors, we've had a number of first-time contributors, which is super, super cool. There is you have to opt in for the badges, for recognition, so you will get a badge for your contribution, which is super, super cool. So thank you very much for all of your contributions, and back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. And yeah, on those badges, some of these repos have tiered badges, everybody. So when you hit 5 and 10, you get extra badges. So I know some of you are really, really close. So definitely lean in. We got a couple months left of the year. All right, let's talk about Teams samples, Microsoft Teams samples. We've got one from the miraculous Marcus. It's a meeting app, it's a console app, it's all in one, it's in TypeScript, it uses SSO and Microsoft Graph. So thank you, Marcus, for all you continue to do for our Microsoft Teams samples. You are a rock star. You can check those out by going to the links there that are available and see them all at aka.ms/community/samples. Now, also, I don't know if you've all heard, we got this new thing called Copilot. Anybody hear about? I don't know. Anybody hear about that? Only like 700 times a day, right? Well, we've got a repo for you on the Power Platform side. April Dunham, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so we have our Power Platform prompt repository. This is your go-to place and probably one of the easiest ways to contribute to the community. If you're using these copilots, if you're using different AI tools inside the Microsoft stack, this is your place to share those with the community so that they can see different ideas of what can work and what they can do with these copilots and AI tools. We actually just got some new submissions from some of our community members for different prompts that they've used. We have one for Outlook attachment distributions. It's a Power Automate prompt there. And we also have one to help you generate test data. So that's a really cool prompt to use inside of Power Automate, Power Apps, wherever you need your test data. So thank you to community members that have contributed those. And if you have prompts that you want to share, go to aka.ms/Power Platform prompts. We'd love to see them. And I think we have, David, a community call coming up dedicated to prompts.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. Next week, we've got Shane Young coming in and a couple other community members. So definitely check it out. Natalie and Keith are going to be there talking about Copilot and the love language of AI and all this great stuff. So take advantage, folks. It's a wide open space, but we know it can be intimidating. So we're here to help. All right. Well, it is that time, picture time. So get those fantastic faces ready. Turn on your cameras. Vesa has already set up together mode and should be taking over. There it goes.
There we go. We are not too badly pixelated. This is good. We have 50 seats again in the room. Hopefully it will get a bit better. Come on, teams, we can do it. Yes, Bill, I agree on that posing on the background, and that's really good. Casper, do the same. Do the same. Come on, pixelation, go away. Pixelation, go away. 50 seats. Thomas is in the front row. Natalie is on a call in the middle as well. A lot of familiar faces. This is really good. Cool. Paul is on the front row. A few more seats. We have availability. I think everybody will recognize at least that we are people, even though it's a bit pixelated. But I think we're hitting the limits pretty close by. So let me put the recording on. I will not put myself on the call. Let's do some hand waving, everybody. There we go. Let's do some hand waving. We'll grab a GIF animation out of this. Thank you for joining on the call. Awesome to have you once again in here. And hopefully we'll see you in the in-person events, which are coming up and again pretty soon. Excellent poses. Awesome poses on the call. Excellent. Let's get back on the normal scheduled program, David.
Awesome. Thank you. People will recognize me as human is the nicest thing that I've had said about me in a long time. So thank you, Vesa. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I aim to
yes.
please. So.
You do, and you have. Thank you. All right, let's get to our amazing presenters. Jason Murphy's going to kick it off with treating flows as functions and advanced Power Automate technique. Jason, take it away.
Okay. Let me just shit. Hang on. This will now swap to the wrong screen, guaranteed. It did. There we go. All right. Hi, my name is Jason Murphy. I spent 26 plus years working at Big Pharma as a scientist and engineer, and did a lot of IT, did a lot of science stuff. Then COVID hits, so I was unemployed for a year. I took my PowerShell and my SQL skills and got Power BI and got into the Power Platform, and after about a year ended up at the University of Surrey doing Power Platform development, and that's where this journey started. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the real world example for today, which was to take an existing paper-based process turned into a modular system with SharePoint. All right, it was an existing paper-based system. It had 5 submissions per run. You had a start, end, hourly bill rates, the amount expected, not calculated. And so we did what absolutely everybody else did in the world. We built a basic system around Microsoft Forms with data validation, with no data validation, because it was a Microsoft Basic Form and SharePoint. Our flow took it to SharePoint, put the data in, then it tried to check the data validity, then it sent it out for approval. So like everybody else, we ended up with an inverted tree of life where one flow did everything, and we ran into a big bunch of problems. So for anyone not familiar with this, a Power Automate flow can be as simple as the left-hand side. There's a manual trigger, there's a compose box, and there's hello world. That's a flow. Or, like everybody else does, you end up with something as complicated as an inverted tree of life. And that's what everybody writes, because that's the way the world is based. I want one thing to get from the top to the bottom and come up with a solution. So what we ended up doing at this point was finding out we ran into a bunch of problems. It was messy. There was a lot of nested towers. We had to fix a lot of bad data, and we had to restart things. And restarting's your big problem, because to restart the run, you have to have permissions for it to get to environment, to get to the flow, to get to the SharePoint list. You got to find the row that was broken. You got to try restarting it without breaking anything else. That's a big problem. The back-end people who we built it for wouldn't go near these things at all. It was far too complicated. And then obviously you'll also run into licensing issues. Okay. So those were all the big problems we had with our inverted tree of life, and they were standard. So as everybody sees from my profile picture on LinkedIn, I'm a bit of a shark fan, and so our basic solution, everybody went, well, you're going to need a bigger flow. No, we're not. We're actually going to need more than one flow, and every flow should do one thing, or a distinct set of things. Every flow should have a start condition. Every flow should have an end condition that we know about, which we'll use called management columns. And then where there's multiple actions inside of a flow, we then look to use child flows for the repeat things over time. But the most important thing about all of this is that you plan for it to go wrong. Guaranteed it's going to go wrong somewhere. And as long as you're planning for it, you can fix it. All right, fixing bad data and restarting it now can all be done from a fun, friendly, colored SharePoint list. All right, so this is where I'm going to show the process. So we have multiple flows in our big solution. Okay, the first flow just takes the data from the basic form, Microsoft Basic Form, and puts it in a SharePoint list, and it is done. it will then automatically set some default values. And that's its job. It is done, and all it does is wait on the form to be filled in again and put it inside the SharePoint list. Obviously, we have a bunch of other flows that then run and do other things. And these are all automated flows, and they're all watching the exact same SharePoint list. But they all work on different things, okay? So as you can see here, the step 2 system works off 3 columns. It checks them. These are what we call management columns, all right? So I just prefix them with MGMs. They serve no other purpose apart from to let you know what stage things are at the start and the end of a process or in between. Okay, so we'll cover those in a second. So they're all just choice fields in a SharePoint list. The second flow looks for those 3, and once those 3 are what we call the blue-blue-yellow system, because that one's blue, and this one's yellow, then everybody knows it's good to go. It processes the data, and if it's good, it then ends up setting 8 columns, all right, of different choices, which I'll explain in a second. But if it's not, there's a manual bit of the process now, so that the user gets an email from the system that says, you've sent us bad data, send us some good data. The back-end team changed the bad data to good data, and all they then literally do is they go back to the SharePoint line and change the entry to blue, blue, yellow, and it puts it back through the system. There's no going anywhere complicated on this, all right? And once everything's good, it then goes to approvals when there's 8 columns are checked. And if it's good, it goes out for an approval. It waits on an approval response, and then gets approved or rejected or something in between. So these are this is where it's all key. Management columns in SharePoint lists. So let's explain those. These are very simple choice fields. You always need more than 1. 2 is an absolute minimum. Having them color coded is great because it allows people to spot things easier, and always have the default value set for a new line entry. So the default value for that one is new entry, and this one says not tested, which in our world, that makes it blue, that makes it blue, that makes it yellow. And that's the blue, blue, yellow principle we use on this process. So what happens is I then explain all of these things. So step 1 has the management columns, and they stop infinite looping, automatic triggering of something. If you change something in SharePoint and a flow is set to look at the SharePoint list, will it trigger itself again? Management columns stop all of those things. So at the end of step 1, blue, blue, yellow. Step 2 waits on blue, blue, yellow, processes the data, loops through up to 5 times with the child flows, and then sets 8 at the end. And then step 3, it waits on those 8 management columns. And the key here when using approvals is do not use start and wait for an approval. Always use start an approval process, then set your management columns, and then wait on a response. And the response will then reset the management columns appropriately to the outcome. All right, so, well, how do we set those? These are all called trigger locks in the flow. They're in the settings section, okay? And the first one is set for these 3 values. That's blue, that's yellow, and those are a big bunch of ones. But they all are done the same way. Now the question is, how do we actually start the flow off and get those like that? All right, well, you actually create a trigger lock by adding in a temporary step to the flow. It's the filter array system, okay? So you put filter array in, and then where everybody goes wrong is they think, I've got to fill in the from box. The from box you ignore. In pink, you ignore that, okay? So that's what's happening there, all right? So you want to pick your management column. You tell it what you want it is to be equal or not equal, and then you give it the appropriate value here. So this says the management manager is equal to shark. And then when you click advanced view, it goes into edit in basic view. Okay, and that's the value you put into the flow settings. So all you do is you wash, rinse, and repeat for the things. One little catch here on the management status system for choice fields is when you're using the dynamic content, you will get 2 things for a choice field. This is the management status field itself, but that says management status value. That is the actual choice option, and it is that you use to populate these boxes. So that's very important on this setting here. So what's so good about all of this? Well, now fix bad data. You can now manually keep repeating the process without having to restart flows. You can change the data and then go blue, blue, yellow in this case and set it going again. Flow errors can occur everywhere, but when you're inside a flow, just put a management column afterwards when you expect something to go wrong, or if you think possibly something's going to go wrong, put a management column in and change its value so you know something's happened and you know where it broke. One real handy case on this is that, and the example we're going to see next, is if you use approvals and the people who are both the person requesting the approval and the people who have been asked to be the approvers, if any of those people are not in a security group that has been applied to the environment the approvals is running out of, the system will fall over and fail. And that's where we first came up with this process, because we couldn't work out why things would fail randomly. And it turned out that it was very easy to catch. So what we did now was we checked for the status that came back and we set the flows appropriately. Now, that's where this started from. And up until a couple of weeks ago, we never had any other issue with it. But a couple of weeks ago, all our flows, SharePoint's statuses also now said approvals issue, other issue. And we didn't know what had happened, but because they all did it, we all knew something else had happened. And there was a fault in the code in Microsoft's approvals app rushed out a couple of weeks ago, and it changed something, and it caused another weird error. But we already had that covered for in the next section, and so that's why it all appeared. So it's a really handy thing to put in just for use cases. So when we have our step for approval, we have a scope block afterwards in red here that says only run if there's an error from the previous step. So this is how we catch it. Step 1 looks for the body, error, and code. So in this case, that's a text field that comes back from the error from approvals. And if it says the user is not a member of the CDS security group, it goes yes. And if it's any other issue, it goes right. And all that happens is that we use a pattern here with its HTTP step, which is the validate, update, list item step. Okay, and it's very, very easy to get the hang of. And unlike all the other HTTP steps, it requires no headers of any other case. It just requires a JSON body and /items ID of the step you're fixing and validate update list. So what goes in those little boxes? All that happens in these boxes to make this work is that you actually have this bit of text. The field value is the choice text. Whatever you want in the management status, the choice text is now going to say that. The management status column and the choice text is going to say that. All that update new document does is it doesn't add one line to the version history. It keeps it on the same update as previous steps in the same run. Okay, so that's what happens. We don't use the SharePoint GUI step. It's much easier to use the HTTP step with the validate update list item pattern for this, and we use it all over the place. This allows you to end up with a system where that's the process overview, that's your triggers based on the choice fields here, and this is what your system looks like for runs for these two columns, and you know at what stage things are faulty in. Okay, so the last thing on this, going back to this stage, these terminates are all set to succeeded because we've error handled the system. Everything should have gone well. We know what their outputs are for whatever reason, and everything else is on the money for these things. So this pattern here goes behind most things where we think there's going to be a problem, and it allows you to do the list. You can do the same thing in Dataverse as well. Low Code Lewis did a blog on the color lozenges for that, and that is pretty much it for now. Tom Marina showed me how to do the trigger links. Robert Shooten did the validate update list item, and Matthew Devaney will teach you how to write code properly, not the way I've shown you how to do it. And that is that.
Awesome, Jason.
No
perfect timing. Lots of links there in the chat for everybody. Some questions I'll let you take a look at. Thank you for walking us through. That's definitely advanced and helpful. So we really, really appreciate that. Next up is Paolo on implementing SSO-enabled Microsoft Teams message extensions with Teams Toolkit. Paolo, I see you're sharing your screen, but I only see darkness.
Really? Okay, let me try again. Is it any better now?
It is not. Vesa, do you see it, or is it?
I see it. Does anybody else
I don't
see
see
it
it.
black?
I don't see it either. So
Wonderful. Okay.
Check the hertz frequency on your screen.
It has been always the same, but let me see. Okay.
let's wait a while.
We want to.
Let's wait a while. Let's wait a while. Let's wait a while. Let's wait a while. Nothing.
Okay. Do we want to switch the demos? Do we want to do Chris before and me then?
Chris is probably still in the middle of building his demo, but let's see. Chris, are you ready to go?
Okay. To make it challenging, Go, Chris.
Well, okay. That's cool. Who needs slides? That's silly. All right. Yeah, sure, I can go. Let's just share the screen here. Oh.
Welcome, Chris Kent, on list formatting tips and tricks.
Yeah. 1 second here. Here we go. Share the screen.
Chris is like, let me change my hertz. Yeah, that's what I need time for, changing my hertz.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, look at me. I'm Chris. There we go.
We can see the screen. Just confirming.
Okay.
Wait.
That's
wait
me.
for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it, and we'll mute ourselves. Take it away.
All right. You got it. All right.
Yep, look good.
All right. That's good enough. That's gonna be the PowerPoint we see today. Now let's hear the Vesta. Okay. Get out of here, bud. All right. Here we go. So we head over to our classic Warrior site and we've got some exciting things to look at today. So the SharePoint team has been doing all sorts of awesome things. And one of the things that I really like they've done, although I've literally seen people roll their eyes at it, which makes me very sad because it's awesome, is the idea of our colored folders, right? So folder coloring here is this idea that we can have a folder and we can apply one of 16 beautiful colors to it, right? So there's 15 set colors and then the default of yellow. It's really easy to apply them, right? You just right click and say folder color and you can change those here. So now that becomes green, but that's horrible, so we don't want that. Or we'll put it back to red and that looks great, right? So we can see that's pretty neat. And that's awesome. We can see that it shows up over in Teams. Let's see if we still have Teams open somewhere. There we go. Teams over here. If we look at Teams, I can't drag Teams over. Did anyone notice it's impossible to drag the window? There we go. Okay, so you can see it in Teams. You got the colored folders here. You can even show up here in the channels. One caveat with that is, while you can set the color for any other channel, you can't set the color for the general channel. And they don't show up in this in channels view here of the colors. But that doesn't really matter. Nice thing, it shows up in files. It shows them in a couple of different spots. It does not affect document sets, which makes us all very sad. But otherwise, hugely effective at quickly identifying what kind of things go in the folder and applying that. But this is a list formatting demo, isn't it? And that's not technically list formatting. It is, but it's out of the box, right? We want to look at how do we want to customize this a little bit. So what if we wanted to go a little further, right? So this is the type column. It's pretty cool. It's got a folder. It's got this icon, right, for the file type. But what if we wanted to go a little further with that? Well, if we actually take a look at, let's hit F12. We're going to open up our dev tools. F12, there we go. So we can inspect. If we take a look and say this guy right here, we can actually see over here, this guy's just an SVG. I'm not going to make you read that, but it's just an SVG, and we can recreate those in this formatting. So let's do that. So I'm just going to create a new column here. We're going to make it a text column. We're going to call this our super type column, right? Because it's even better than just type. And we're going to put multiple lines of text. I'll explain that in a moment. We'll create that exciting super type column. I'm going to just drag it over here so we can see it. Beautiful. And then we can start to do stuff with that, right? So we can format this column. And the first thing I want to do is talk about, how can we see that color, right? So if we were to just make a very basic format where we say elm type is a div. Whoop, whoop. All right, we say it's a div, and we say our text content, just to prove it's working, is wowee. That's good, right? So now we can see that that's working, right? But now we can swap that out. We can actually pull in a value. So there's a column, right, called underscore color hex, right? And you would think, oh, that probably means a hex value, and you'd be wrong, right? Because that corresponds to the color, right? So it's not a hex at all. It is a number between 0 and 15, right? 0 or blank is going to be the default. That's going to be that yellow, right? So that's what you're going to get there, but that's how you determine what color it is. Now I've also put it over here, but that was just so I could order these so I could see the pretty rainbow styles. So that's how we get that. So what can we do a little further? So I've gone ahead and stripped out the SVG for that folder. I'm going to go ahead and copy that over here so we don't have to watch me type it. And so we can see, let's make this a little bigger. There we go. The idea here is let's preview that and make that a little bigger. Now we have a folder, right? So all we've done is we've taken the SVG from the folder and we've mapped it into a format, right? So we've got a few different paths here and so on. Now, one thing to note, if you're really looking, you might notice it's a slightly different look, and that's in the fact that there is a gradient on the out-of-the-box ones. But because we don't have the ability to do gradients or pass in the URL like they're doing as the background, we're just going flat, and I think it looks pretty good. We could probably get a little fancier, but I think that's pretty good for now. Obviously, it's not respecting the colors, though. So let's do that. So the way we would respect those colors is through a formula, right? So an expression where we would take a look, again, at that color hex value. So if we just look at kind of maybe the main part of that folder first, we'll see if we can color that. And I think that's this bottom one. So let me just grab this formula here over there, and we'll come over here, and that's this guy. So instead of filling it directly, let's set that to an expression, casual expression here. Let's preview that. Oh, that's one of the other colors. So let's just copy this whole thing. We'll just take a look at it that way for time here. Boom. Boom. So the idea here is all we're really doing is we've just got that same SVG that's drawing, but in each case where we're setting the color, we're specifying that based off that color hex, right? So when it's 15, use this. When it's the default, use this, and so on. It's a little ugly to read because we don't have switch statements, but because we have these if statements, right? We just nest those all the way down, and we do it 3 times for all the three different SVG parts. And there we go. We have colored folders, and it's very, very exciting, right? And the other thing we've done is right here. Is we're hiding this. So if we take this out, for instance, just so we can see what it does, I take that out and I preview that. Now you'll see that, hey, these aren't folders. What's going on, right? Why are we drawing folders? That's crazy, right? So the way we can fix that is we can add that back in, right? So we add that display. What was that? Color display, yeah, blah, blah, basically like that, perfect. And the idea here is we're doing a content type ID. So if I were managing the content types, I would have a content type column without the ID, and I could just reference it by name, and I'd say folder. Because I'm not managing content types, the only thing I have right now is the content type ID. And if you take a look at, say, the base content type hierarchy, you can see the way those work is they slowly get built out. So a folder starts with this 120, and then it goes from there as it goes down to the list. So you're going to do that starts with. That way, even though it's the list content type, you're still detected it. So that's exciting. So we're saying only show it, right, when it's a folder, right? So if it's not a folder, show none. So when we preview that, right, those go away. So wow, that's exciting, right? So now what about down here? We wanted this file type. Yeah, so far we're just recreating out-of-the-box functionality, and that is exciting. But I will show you why we're doing this in just a moment. All right. Let's go ahead and just grab this next piece, which is our file preview, which is really exciting. All right, let's come down here to the very bottom. We've got our children here. Last child. We're just going to paste that guy in. Get rid of that extra comma. We'll see if I pasted that correctly. I did. So the way this works is you add an element type of file preview. When you add a file preview, by default, you're going to see a lot of examples, and we'll see this in a moment where you're going to provide a thumbnail. We've taken a look at the thumbnail. And what this is doing is wrapping up, the things it knows about the file for you. It's going to go ahead and apply some of these icons. So there's a bunch of icons here. If we take a look over at, go away, that thing. We'll just hope I'm not showing anything terrible underneath there. Perfect. Okay. So, right, we have this idea of these are the brand icons, and we also have these file type icons. With the file preview, we get access to both of those, which is awesome. So we can see here that you can apply, your file preview props, and in those you can apply styles to each of those, the brand icons or the file type icons. In this case, I don't want to show the brand type icon. I just want the file type icon, and I want this size and transparent and so on, so it looks fine when I hover over it, and that gives me that nice icon. Wow, I've recreated a column. Now, why would I do that, right? Let's take it a little further here, and we're going to go ahead and just copy this one so we can see it. And the idea here is I'm going to paste that. And if we take a look up here, way up here. So we've got the folder icon here. And what I've done is I've wrapped this down here in what's called a click. I'm calling this a click target. It's just a div that I'm absolutely positioning over the whole thing. And what that allows it to happen is, instead of having to apply a custom card to the individual SVG or other stuff, because it creates different issues when we've got those nested SVGs, I'm just hovering a div over it and applying the custom card to that. All right, so now we can see that we should have a hover card. Oh, we got a preview. Hit preview. All right, now we get this idea that, ooh, now we get this cool thing here. So now we can actually see details about the folder, right? Including, we have this idea of, we've got the title, we have this description, which we'll see in a moment. And we can even see details about what might be inside it, right? So we've got the folder, we've got the file. Let's go ahead and save that so we don't lose it when we navigate. We can actually click on that and we'll navigate in, and we can see that does match. It actually has those things. So that's pretty cool. All right, so now we've got that. And we can come down here. We don't have anything for this. So let's expand that as well, just for fun. So fun. All right, let's paste over that. I'm going to preview that guy. So basically the same thing, right? Except now we've got a file preview, and let's take a look at how that's working. So we have our same file preview we had before with the icon, and then we've got a custom, we're doing the same kind of click target over it because there's some weirdness with the elements it generates here. So we got our custom card props on the hover. In this case, instead of specifying the file preview props, we're just specifying an attribute of source. And we're saying we want a thumbnail, and you could say like large here or medium or small, or in my case, I'm going to say I want the width of 172, right? Because, hey, that's what I'm showing here. Now, I still need to constrain this because this isn't going to give me an exact thing. It's going to give me basically it's going to approximate, probably it's going to pull the small for me and so on. But that creates this nice preview so I can see that. And that's really cool. Again, I get that file, that brand icon that's showing there. I could style that and everything else. But this gives me some really nice functionality. So let me save that. And then let's come up here and let's rename this thing. Let's edit this column. Instead of super type, let's hit Windows P to get an emoji. We'll say document. Boom, like that. Make it pretty, right? And then we'll hit save. I could make it just that to match kind of what they're doing, but we can only go so small. So let's bring that over here. All right, and then we're gonna, where's our add remove columns? All right, show or hide columns, and I'm just gonna get rid of type by. Right, so that's pretty cool. And so then the other thing we could do, right, so because this is on the folder, we can't do certain things like set value or inline edit field because they're come back as read-only fields. And in fact, if you try, you'll be a little frustrated. It'll look like it just doesn't even work. So that's why we've got this note about the grid view. So if we edit the grid view, I'm just going to go ahead and grab a few descriptions I have so we can just see that working. All right, we'll just paste those in, maybe. Let's try that again. Bomb. Did it work? I don't know. We'll just do it manually. Okay. If we put all of the evilness here, right? Assumption later, and then we put our, just put in a couple of descriptions here. And the idea is if we put these right on the field itself, we'll edit the grid view, we'll just put a couple in. Now we get this description, right? So now we can actually guide people on what should be inside this folder in addition to our colors. Because we could fully control the rendering of this, I was experimenting with hovering emojis over it or even the icons on these things. So you can have an additional category or that kind of thing. So you can start to do a lot of things with the color, or you can even do an additional row class where maybe you highlight certain things or color coordinate other things in your rows to match all that. And that's very, very exciting. Wow. And like I said, I don't have slides. This is a sample that is available to you. So be sure to check that out. It is a column sample called the generic super type. And that is, actually, I did not publish it, so I will publish that now, and that'll be available to you. And that's all I got. Wow.
Awesome, Chris. I think everybody has got a renewed excitement for folders and coloring and lasers, in fact. But I do think there was a little disappointment that you didn't use a horse icon at all as part of your.
That is sad.
So next time, yeah, we'll get back. Everybody was sold on that. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go back to Paolo and see if he's got his Hertz running correctly. And I see it. Excellent.
You see it?
Yep,
wonderful.
Fantastic. Yes.
Wonderful. We made it. Okay. So welcome back again to this demo about implementing single sign-on enabled Microsoft Teams messaging extension with Teams Toolkit, the longest title ever. What are we going to talk about? Well, we are going to see how we can use the Teams Toolkit to create a Microsoft Teams messaging extension for search. which will rely on a single sign-on security context, so that at the very end, we will be able, from the messaging search extension, to search something through a backend API, accessing that backend API under the identity of the current user who is consuming Teams in the desktop or web application. And this is, I think, really powerful for line of business applications where you want to authorize access to content to your users. So out of the box, Teams Toolkit gives us the basic infrastructure and scaffolding for creating a message extension for search, but we need to accomplish quite some steps to do the single sign-on part of the story. So let me switch to the actual demo, and let me show you, first of all, how the solution behaves in my Teams client. So here I'm in an hypothetical chat with my colleague Guido. And let's say that I want to send him a message with something which will come out from my line of business system. I'm relying on a Contoso retail demo that we have been using already in the past, and I'm using the same backend APIs just to make it easier and reusable solution. Here I can search for something like clothes in my retail company, and by searching, I'm searching content filtered by the identity of the user who is consuming this search API. I can select this wonderful pair of jeans, and I can send a message to Guido to say, look at these jeans and let me know if you like them or not. Okay, that's the idea. And I can do that from a chat. I can do that from a channel. So I can go into any channel, start a post, and again, I can start searching for clothes. And you can see here, we can include them in a channel, as well as, and this is really interesting in my opinion, I can also use the same extensibility point in Outlook.com if I want to create a new mail, let's say for myself, because I used to write to myself and to reply back as well, because I don't want to feel alone. Ciao Paolo or Pablo. This will be my email. And in the content of my email, I'm going to use the application Contoso Retails again. And here I can still search for, I don't know, jacket this time. And I will be able, hopefully, to get a jacket or more than one from my database of clothes. And I can select one item and include that item in the email that I'm going to send to myself. So that's the idea. So extending the user experience in Teams and in Outlook.com with a fully secured backend API. The backend API is the API that we have for the Contoso Retail. And as you can see from the Swagger UI, every single API endpoint requires authorization to be used by the consumer. And that's why we have an application registered in Azure Active Directory through which we securely access that backend API. So one step at a time, we will get there. First of all, we need to create a messaging extension for Teams. How can we do that? Well, in Teams Toolkit from Visual Studio Code, we can start, and let me do that. We can start a new instance of Visual Studio Code. And using the Teams Toolkit, we can say that we want to create a new application of type message extension, and it will be a custom search result, for example, in TypeScript. I will target this folder, and I will call it Team Search 01, just for the sake of providing one name. As you will see, the scaffolding made by Teams Toolkit will prepare for me a solution with a few instructions, which will allow me to implement a search extension, which in the search.app.ts file will simply rely on an API, the npm.js API, to anonymously search for something, and will return the results of the search query through a set of adaptive cards that we can create for each and every resulting item. And then we can add to a collection of items that will be then the result of our search query. Now, the interesting part of the story is how we can make this extension aware of the user context and able to work with single sign-on. So let me close this one, which is the out-of-the-box scaffolded one, and let me show you what we can do and what I have done in my real solution. So first of all, in order to do that, I need to register in Azure Active Directory an application which will be enabled to consume my secured backend API. So as I showed you before, I have my backend API, and this backend API is registered as a multi-tenant API in this scenario, but doesn't really matter that it is a multi-tenant one. It is just an application registered in Azure Active Directory, which exposes an API with a specific API unique URI and with a permission, which is, in my scenario, contoso-retail.consume. So in order to being able to consume my backend API, I need to provide an access token with this specific permission scope in the access token itself. So in order to do that, I registered in the Azure Active Directory of my consumer tenant another application, which will be configured in the API permission section to have the contoso-retail.consume permission for that specific API. So I have the API provider and I have the API consumer. Now, in the Teams Toolkit solution, I created an aad.manifest.json file, which simply defines the definition of that application, the consumer application in Azure Active Directory. So here I have all of the information about my application, including, for example, that I want to have the permission to consume my Contoso Retail app. Actually, it is a bit cryptical here, but this is the ID of the target API, and this is the ID of the permission that we saw before. So these two GUIs are basically this information that I see in the UI of Azure ID or Entra ID. I also have in the configuration that I have a list of applications that are allowed to use this API. And this list of applications, as you can see, are the Teams Desktop, the Teams Web Client, the Outlook Desktop, and so on and so forth. Once I've done that, I have to slightly update the auto-generated Teams app .yaml file, whether the local or the one for deployment remotely. And in this file, I need to add a few elements, like, for example, the section to create my Azure Active Directory application, so that when I will do the deployment of my solution, the Azure Entra ID application will be deployed into the target tenant. And here I have to provide a set of input arguments like the ID of the application, the client ID, the tenant ID, and all the stuff that I need to use. I also need, and you will find the whole source code of the solution on GitHub, so no worries, you don't need to catch all of the excerpt of code. I need to provide an instruction to update that application registration in case of need. And I also need to configure my application in the local configs file in order to have all of the settings that I need to run my single sign-on based solution. Once I've done that, I also need to configure in the manifest of my Teams solution that I will need to rely on single sign-on. That means that in the last part of this file, I have the web application info section. When I declare that I have an application, which will have the client ID of the application that I registered in Azure ID, and which will rely on these resource. Let me show you again the application in Azure Entra ID. And in fact, this consumer application is also configured to expose an API itself with this specific application unique URI and with a permission which is called access as user. This is the permission scope that we need whenever we want to do single sign-on in a Teams application. And here we are declaring that our application through its manifest is based on that specific app ID and on that specific resource or audience ID, so that the access as user token that will be generated by the Teams client and sent to my bot in the backend for searching the content will be related to this application. Once I've done that, I still need to do a few more steps. First of all, I need to slightly update the configuration of my app so that I will be able to not only reference to the bot settings that are created by default by the scaffolding tool of Teams Toolkit, but I will also be able to refer to the client ID, tenant ID, secret, and all the settings of my custom back API. I will need to provide a couple of pages which you can find in the repository of this solution on GitHub, which will implement the actual login and initial login and end of the login stage for the user. So the auth start will be the URL provided to the user to start the sign-in process, and the auth end will be the one used to close, to complete the authentication flow. And in the index.ts of my solution, I will have to make those HTML pages available through the Node.js server of my solution. And once I've done that, I will need to install a couple of NPM packages, specifically the TeamsFX one and the isomorphic fetch one, so that we can use them in the updated search-up.ts file. Why do I say updated? Well, because using the TeamsFX library, this search-up.ts file has been improved, and now we don't have anymore just an anonymous query to an anonymous API, but actually we replaced the handle Teams messaging extension query with a new invocation of this handle message extension query with single sign-on, which is provided by the TeamsFX library. And in this one, I will get as an input through the context that is provided to this method of my search bot. I can provide the token that the Teams client will send to my backend bot. This token will be an access token for this application, the consumer one, and will include the access as user permission scope. Now, in the bot, in the backend of my Teams extension, I can use this functionality, this class provided by TeamsFX, which is the on behalf of user credential, which will use that token and a configuration of a new token that I want to retrieve in order to get an access token for the backend API, so for the search cloth API. And this will be a on behalf of token because the bot will actually make the search query on behalf of the user who is consuming the Teams client in the front end, in the desktop or web Teams application. Using this object, I make a request for a token to consume my contoso retail.consume target API. So this will give me back an access token with the permission scope for my backend API. And then I can finally make a REST request and get inside and put inside the authorization header the access token that I've got through this credential object, and I can get back the items resulting from the search query against my backend search API. And then I can simply provide the output as a set of adaptive cards. Quite a journey so far. We still need a couple of more easy steps. First of all, if we want to automate the deployment, we also need to update the infra section of Teams Toolkit, adding the custom parameters to the azure.parameters.json file. These are the input parameters that we also want to have in the configuration of our solution. And I also need to update the bicep file for Azure deployment, so that when deploying the web application, in the web application, we can configure all of the settings that we need for our bot to being able to consume the backend API. As I said, there are quite some steps that we need to accomplish, but thanks God, there is a document that you can rely on, and which you will find in my slide deck in the last slide. And here you can find all of the detailed steps. And you will also find the source code of the solution in the Contoso Retail Dashboard sample under the sample gallery. So these are the useful links, the sample itself and the instructions step by step to make what I've just shown you. It will take a little bit, but you will be really happy to have a single sign-on experience in search extensions for Teams. Thank you, and back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Paolo. Excellent overview of all that information. Put the links in the chat there for everybody, and we will also get them into the show notes for the video. Let's wrap this call up. It has been a good one. So thank you, Jason, Paolo, and Chris, for all of your presentations today. Really appreciate all the efforts that brought by the community and sharing with the community. It would not be possible without all the contributions that you're all willing to give. Now, you may be wanting to get a little bit more collaborative with everybody outside of the community calls. We have our community Discord server that is up and available for you. I think we're hitting in well over 700 now. So as we get close to 1,000, I think there's a set of steak knives. I'm just kidding. But it is a great place. It's a wonderful opportunity to collaborate and talk to everyone in one location, learn about new upcoming things that we're working on in the community, and it is absolutely free. We'd also like to know if you are enjoying these calls or what kind of changes you may want to see. Please do fill out the feedback form, even if you've already done it, everybody. We love to show consistent satisfaction, and it helps our management know that these calls are of value and we can continue to invest in them. So we absolutely love it. In fact, closing in on 900 members on that Discord. So definitely, and get involved there. The recording of this call will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community YouTube channel. You can get access to that at ak.ms/community/videos. You will likely see in the Teams chat that it is ready for download unless you're a Microsoft employee. Don't believe it. It's just trying to sell you Amway or something like that. But you can absolutely go subscribe to YouTube, and you'll be alerted as soon as it's available. You can also follow us on Twitter or the forum, or X as it's now known, at M365PNP. The next Microsoft 365 and Power Platform biweekly call is 2 weeks from today, November 23rd. For those of you in the States, you may be thinking, well, that's Thanksgiving. You're right, it is, and we will still be here. So absolutely feel free to join in. And the next Viva Connection SharePoint Framework, 1 week from today, November 16th, both at 7 a.m. Pacific. Go subscribe and get those ICS downloads, ak.ms/community/calls. Thank you, everybody, for being such an amazing community. All these initiatives and programs would not be possible without you. Have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you soon.